Hi mob, it's been a while since I've done a video. The last video I did was from a very heavy and triggered state, and I've been doing a lot of self-work since then. Is it about coming home to the self? Is it about belonging to self first before I try and belong to the other roles and the other paths that I walk in my life as I work to weave them all together and understand what that process is to bring together my learning journey of culture and cultural practices, of being a mother, of being a businesswoman, my journey through jiu-jitsu, and my work with young First Nations girls and women and youth. And it's got me thinking. I've been processing a lot of work of Yolanda Finette, who I first came across her work at a workshop, and she was talking about deep self-care being about the practice of addressing the things that are causing our pain or our turmoil. And that could be whatever it is that I'm avoiding or running from is the stuff that I need to address, as this is the stuff that will lead to the path of healing and moving through these things. And her work with honouring self and sovereignty as a First Nations woman. And then I came across this book by Tarana, Burke and Brene Brown, which is You Are Your Best Thing, Vulnerability, Shame, Resilience and the Black Experience, an anthology. And it basically came about because Tarana Burke contacted Brene Brown after thinking about her work and Brene's work around shame, resilience, and vulnerability and courage and daring greatly and showing up. And it was about the fact that for the Black experience, majority of these writers are black women, and it was about them addressing their experience of shame, resilience and vulnerability from the Black experience. And one in particular really stood out to me, and initially at first I didn't connect with the chapter title because it didn't speak to my experience. We Are Human Too, on Blackness, Vulnerability, Disability and the Work Ahead by Kia Brown. However, these first few lines that I'll quote really stood out to me and really got me thinking deeply. In the spirit of honesty, I'm still figuring out what it means to be me. Self-expression is imperative to my survival. I am who I am. I also write to make sense of, reckon with, explore and decide who I want to be in the world. And then she goes on to speak about her disability and being a Black woman with a disability. And it got me thinking, what, with my own path and my own questioning about what does it mean to be a First Nations woman with fair skin in the 21st century, and what is self-acceptance the path through, which is a concept that I came across on an Instagram post, the difference between self-acceptance and self-love. Don't bite. Don't bite. Nah, Aussie. And what does that actually mean for me in terms of, is self-acceptance the journey through my healing and pushing back on the world that has always told me that I'm either too much or not enough in terms of the things that I've raised my voice to, and and now I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, is shame, resilience and vulnerability part of my experience, and how does that show up in terms of the work that I'm doing on myself to come home to self so that I can then show up for others? And is self-acceptance the journey through to decolonizing myself around challenging what the Western world tells me and what society and how I grew up have told me what it means to be a mother, to be Aboriginal, to be a woman, and now what I'm learning about business and what is the path forward in weaving all of these together so that they support each other. And when I decolonize these practices, is that the journey through to self-determination and sovereignty as a First Nations woman? Now, for me, self-determination means that I have access to the resources of time and money to work on myself, to learn my culture and practice my culture so that I can live in that way and do it in the daily and teach that to my children so that they grow strong in self and identity and connection. Then they can take that out into the world as they grow. And how do I weave that into the work that I do, walking in different worlds of working with youth, in business, working in corporates, and challenging these spaces to show up, to be, lead and serve from the heart. But yeah, it just got me thinking, and that'll be the stuff that I'll be talking about more and more as I unpack this journey of how do I weave together all areas of my life towards self-determination and sovereignty as a First Nations woman, living and raising and loving my family as we are now. Is it self-acceptance? Is it coming home to self? Would love to know your thoughts. Mwah.